Hello guys, welcome back. So this is going over lab number 12, which is on the fertilization and development, and this is for AMP2 lab exam 3. So the first thing that we're going to go over is the embryo, which is this cute guy. So the first thing you need to know is the brain, which is of course this front part right here. You have the forebrain, which is this front part right here. You have the midbrain, this area here, and then you have the hindbrain. This is the back portion right here. So all of this right here would be the brain with the three parts, which is the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Of course, you have is the nose, which is this little hole right here. That would be the nose. You have the eye. Woo, let's go in close like this. So this is the nose. This would be the eye right here. You have the lower jaw, which is this little bump right here. So this would be the lower jaw. And then you have this right here, which is called the bronchial arches, or I say it branchial, which helps me with spelling. So these are branchial arches, which are these three right here. You then have the heart, which is this one right here, which has the little two bumps right here. This would be the heart. And you have the liver, which is this bottom one right here. This would be the liver. You have the arm buds, which is this little teeny cute arm right here. This would be the arm bud. This right here would be the leg bud. And then the vertebra would be this whole little flat part right here. And this is all fused together, and then they would start to separate once this embryo would start to grow and become a fetus. So that is the embryo model. Next we have is the ovary model, which is this thing right here. So this is the ovary. First thing is the mesovarium, which is this top part right here, which includes these blood vessels right here. So this is the mesovarium. You have the suspensory ligament, which is this section right here, which doesn't have any blood vessels. So this right here, what comes off here would be the suspensory ligament. You would have the ovarian ligament, which would be this right here. This right here would be the ovarian ligament. You have the cortex and the medulla. So the cortex is this big section here where there's a lot of activity going on, while the medulla is this middle area where there's a bunch of ovarian blood vessels going in. So this is the medulla, this would be the cortex. You have the oocyte, which is this little guy right here. So this would be the oocyte. Ovarian arteries and veins. So you have the ovarian arteries and veins. So the red ones would be the ovarian arteries, and the blue ones would be the ovarian veins. You have the primordial follicles. So these right here are the primordial follicles. These two right here would be the primary follicles. This is the secondary follicle. As you can see, it's starting to create a little space area right here. It's starting to begin, and it'll start eventually become like this. So then this is the secondary follicle, and then this is the mature follicle. Once the oocyte comes off of this little space right here, once it exits out of the ovary, what would it become would be the corpus hemorrhagicum, or the ruptured follicle, so which is this thing right here. Over time then, it would become this thing right here, which would be the corpus luteum. So this is corpus luteum, corpus luteum, corpus luteum, and this right here will be the corpus albicans. Okay. You have the germinal epithelium, which is the outside layer right here. That's called the germinal epithelium. You have the layers of the follicle. So you have the blue layer around. So the blue layer around, that'll be called the granulosa cells. And then you have the yellow part, which is the corona radiata. So if you think of like the sun is yellow, it's bright, it's shining, it's radiating. It's the corona radiata. So it's like a little circle, like a crown, and it's the corona radiata. And that will be it for the ovary model. Next is the pregnancy set, which are these right here. Ah! Fetus fell out. Okay, so the pregnancy set is all these right here, which are, there's different kinds. Well, there's different, these are in different stages of development. So these right here, these two right here, they're really tiny, and they haven't, these little two right here are still embryos, and they're embryos until 2 months or 8 weeks of development in the womb. So this two would be embryos, while these three up here would be fetuses. Okay? So first you have is the vagina, which comes off of this. So that this comes off, it will be the vagina. You have the cervix, which is the bottom part right here. This will be the cervix. It makes kind of like a C shape. Like a C shape? Yeah. You have the uterine or the fallopian tubes. So when there's a fetus inside, the fallopian tube kind of gets pulled and becomes this thing right here. So this is the fallopian or uterine tube, or in like when it's just beginning to develop, they're a lot more curved, and they're not a lot more they're not as stretched as much, but over time it becomes like this. So this is the uterine tube. You have the ovary, which is at the end of the uterine tube. So you have these fimbriae right here. You have the uterine tube, which the uterine tube, and then you have the ovary right here, which is this yellow bulb right here. You have the broad ligament, which is actually the connection between the uterus and the fallopian tube, which is this thin line right here because it's being pulled. But normally it would be these wings right here. But then when it's pulled, when the fetus grows, it becomes just this little thin thing right here. This little thing right between the fallopian tube and the uterus. So you have the uterus, which is of course this whole thing right here. You have this outer layer right here with the blue and the red dots, which represent the blood vessels. That would be the myometrium. So this layer is called the myometrium, while this whole thing is called, this whole organ is called the uterus. You have the placenta, which is this purple thing right here. You have the fetal part and the maternal part. So the fetal part is this purple area right here. And this little area right here, in which you can see the blood vessels start going into the red. This section right here will be called the maternal part of the placenta. So the fetal part is out here, while the blood vessels start to go through this section right here of the red. That would be called the maternal part. This whole middle, this whole inside layer of red would be called the endometrium. Okay, but this section right here is the maternal part. You have, of course, is the umbilical cord, which comes off of the fetus. So this is a fetus. The umbilical cord then, provides the nutrients in order for the fetus to grow. Okay. So you have the amnion, which would be the fluid that would flow inside here, and you have the amniotic cavity, which is the white layer right here, which is the amniotic cavity. You have the internal os, which is this section right here, the internal os. And you have the round ligaments, which are these little stubs right here that are a little bit cut, but you can see here, a little bit right here. So these are the round ligaments. And that is it for the pregnancy set. Awesome. So continuing on, you know that you watched the Miracle of Life video. Make sure you know the answers to all those questions, because those can potentially, be part of the test. So make sure you go over those and you memorize those questions that you answered for the Miracle of Life video. And that should be it for Lab 12. So happy studying, and I hope you do really good on this lab exam, because you know it's coming towards the end of the school year, and you know you gotta end up, you gotta end strong. So yep, that's it. So this is the sea urchin development slides, and these are just examples of what actually in a lot more detail than what would be seen in the lab exam, but still helps you, give you a better image of what it should look like. So the first thing is the unfertilized egg, which it just says egg on this case, in which is this pretty plain with a little dot in the middle, and that would be the unfertilized egg. When the egg is fertilized, or it becomes a zygote, what happens is that a jelly membrane, or just a jelly type substance, which is clear or white in some cases, surround the zygote, in which you then have the fertilization membrane, which is the edge of the darker area where the fertilization will occur. It makes sense, right? So the fertilization will occur in the middle with the fertilization membrane on the edge of that dark area with the jelly membrane on the outside. What would happen then with that, there would be separation of the zygote first into 2 cells, and then it'll separate again into 4, 8, then 16, then 32, etc., until it becomes a blastula. And so as you can see with the blastula, it looks somewhat similar to a zygote, but there's a lot more detail and a lot more differences inside of it. Next is the gastrula. So the gastrula comes after a blastula, and you need to know three different you indicate 3 different things in the gastrula. First is the ectoderm, which is the outside part of the C-shaped thing, and then you have the endoderm, which is the inner part, the inner line of the gastrula. Well, the mesoderm is where the 2 connection points between the 2 sides of the C. The middle part right there will be called the mesoderm. So that would basically be the sea urchin development. So you just have to recognize what each of these would be.